So, truth. We speak of this from together many times, but I'm approaching it from just a little bit of a different point of view, because the invitation here is for us to explore where we are with our own truth. There is a universal truth, many universal truths, and we recognize those universal truths because they have a stream of consciousness that flows through all scripture from thousands of years ago to present day mystics. So we recognize the solid ground upon which those truths bear. But then we also know within ourselves where we try to get around some of those truths. And those can be through manipulation, through deceiving ourselves, some self-deception, and trying to tell little white lies to get ourselves out of trouble, right? We've all done that at one time or another. And sometimes we get away with it so well that it becomes, hey, that was easy. I think I'll do that one again. But how willing are we to really stand in the truth, the big truth, and allow our hearts to feel very clean, very clear on how we present ourselves to our world. So Damien read that, reminding ourselves of the one mind. When we speak of one mind in the science of mind, one consciousness. And we are a part of that one mind. So we can trust that intuitively we are always connected to that channel of grace and good. So this idea from deception, self-deception, importantly, so kind of pay attention to that as you listen to these words today. And I'm going to start off by sharing the wisdom of Adashante in an experience he had with his first teacher. So if you could try to put yourself in this small story and see what parts kind of poke at your heart or wake you up. So this is called finding the truth within yourself, Adashante. The first time I went to see my teacher was a very odd experience. I found her name in the back of a book, and I couldn't believe there was a Zen teacher only 15 minutes from where I was living. What great fortune to have a Zen master around the corner. And I remember with enormous anticipation, I felt the day that I went to meet her. Now think about the times for yourself when you when maybe you first came here, or you went to hear a profound mystical teacher, and how that felt, that anticipation. It was a Sunday morning because she always met with students on Sunday mornings, and I was driving through the foothills of Los Gatos. I was following the direction she had given me, but it seemed very strange, like I had made some sort of wrong turn. I can't really tell you why, but I was going down dirt roads and obscure paved roads, and for some reason, well, maybe I was nervous, but who knows? I just kept getting lost. Eventually I found the way, but it was by accident, it seemed. The first surprise was that the Zen teacher was teaching out of her home. I had expected a temple. So think about your preconceived ideas. A temple, in a woman, a monk in traditional robes, and all the rest of that. And yet here was an ordinary home in the foothills of Los Gatos. I parked the car on the side of the road and walked to the driveway. It's a very strange driveway. I couldn't figure out where the front door of the home was. Most homes have an obvious entry, an obvious front door, but her front door was not facing the road. It was actually facing inward, towards the driveway, and it took me a while to find it because there's a number of doors. I didn't even know it was the front door until I grabbed the handle and noticed there was a sign draped over the handle and said Zazen with an arrow pointing towards a gate. So I went through that gate, through the backyard, up some steps, onto a deck, and then I saw the sliding glass door in her backyard. There was only two people there, a woman and a middle-aged man. I walked up to the door, knocked, and she opened it. She looked at me and said, "Welcome." She pointed to my shoes. Then she told me where to put my shoes. So I kicked off my shoes to the side of the door, and she said, "Oh, no, no. Please, put your shoes nice and straight." So I straightened them up and I walked to the door. What I didn't know at the time was that I was receiving my first teaching. By pointing out my shoes and that I had just kicked them off and her request to straighten them up, she actually was beginning to teach me about my life, to take care of my life, to be aware, to be conscious of what I was doing. Without saying it, what she was really saying was, be aware of your shoes. Stay conscious, stay awake. Don't go to sleep to anything. Next, I walked into the kitchen and she pointed towards the living room. In the living room, a lot of furniture was moved out and there were cushions set up for meditation. The space was very, very beautiful, and there was a small statue of the Buddha figure at the far end of the room. Well, at home, I sit on a furry blanket that had a big picture of a lion on the front. I had come with that blanket all folded up, and when I turned the corner into the living room and saw all the beautiful cushions and the number of people sitting into the room, I looked down at my blanket and suddenly felt like a child carrying their blankie to this great meditation center. I was so embarrassed that I walked over to a wall and put the blanket behind me. Now, for some reason, I really resonated with that moment where we're trying something new and the self-consciousness starts to kick around our sense of who we are. And so then we start to think about how the ego that is constructed around who we are begins to feel a little bit shamed by an experience. So I walked over to the wall and put the blanket behind me, and I tried to drop it at my feet without anybody noticing. Well, this was another teaching, the teaching of humility. Of course, at that time, I didn't know why any of these were teachings. Only in retrospect did I become aware of them. I took my seat, the bell rang, and we began meditating. I didn't know at the time, but that was the beginning of a 13-year student-teacher relationship. What she showed me during 13 years was at each step, how to find my true autonomy. Whenever I'd ask her a question, she'd point inside and say, "What do you think?" I think that's so valuable, just that. What do you think? Why are you here, and what do you think? There is a great truth. There is a great love that is holding us. And if we can allow ourselves to open with great faith into that grace, then what else is there but to align with that and move with that, live, move, and have our being in that, and let go of everything else, all of these awkward feelings and feeling self-conscious. He had come to her confused and say, "I'm not sure if I'm meditating very well. Can you help me?" "Well, what are you doing?" she'd say. "Well, I'm doing this or doing that." And she'd say, "Well, what do you think you should do?" And I'd say this or that, and sometimes she'd make a suggestion, and then she'd say, "Oh, maybe a little bit more like this, maybe a little bit more like that." It was always just a suggestion. She had a different way of teaching than a Zen teacher at a retreat center that I was to go to a couple years later, but in essence, she was easing me into my autonomy, my own authority. For many years, I found it frustrating that I never got a straight answer from her, or at least I didn't think I did. When I'd meet with her in private and ask her certain questions about spiritual life, she would always direct me back to myself. When what I wanted was a nice, clear, concise spiritual answer that I could hold in my mind with certainty, she never ever once gave me this, not in 13 years. It took me a long time to realize that this was a great gift. She was insisting that I feel the truth from inside myself. She refused to give me a teaching that my mind would hold on to and grasp. She just pointed me deeper and deeper inside, and through that, I found that I developed a capacity to listen inside, to follow, and to find out what was true and not true, to find out what was wise and not wise. Oftentimes, the center invites all of us to take classes, to allow ourselves to be nudged into a greater understanding of the truth and the laws of the divine. And in Love and Law, Ernest Holmes says, all your work begins and ends in our consciousness, because mind is all there is. Think of yourself as in this mind. Don't think of this mind as being you. Rather, think of yourself as in the center of this mind, and this mind is flowing through each and every one of us. So, what are we asking here then? What is this asking of you? Keep pointing back to your own self and your own understanding. How is God working through you? How do you become the instrument of this truth? If you choose to walk from here today and say, I no longer look outside myself for this truth, but I choose now to listen to the still small voice. I choose to stand in my integrity. I choose to welcome silence when I feel that my words might be unkind, when I feel that I'm standing in judgment, that what I am about to experience is only framed by my perception and my perception alone, and there's always another side. So I stand free. You see, when they speak that spiritual quote about, being set free, the truth will set you free. And what does that mean? You're no longer bound by any of those conditions that you put on yourself or that you put upon another by trying to control a situation. The truth sets us free when we know the truth and we see the evolution of our consciousness, and we're choosing in that moment to align with this great truth. Science of Mind deals with the question, the divine plan is one of freedom. So what does freedom mean to you? Remember, keep feeling the words from inside of you. What does freedom mean to me? What would it take to feel free? Freedom is this birthright of every living soul, and we all instinctively know this. The truth points to freedom under law. Ernest Holmes says, the inherent nature of man is forever seeking to express itself in terms of freedom. We do well to listen to this inner voice, for it tells us of a wonderful life, a love beyond our fondest dreams, a freedom which each soul here craves. We know the truth. We know the truth when we're up against a situation, and we're striving always to keep that truth always known in our mind. What kind of world would it be if we all spoke the truth? Not in a way that makes mine over yours, but if in a moment we spoke a truth, or we allowed ourselves to be quiet long enough to absorb that truth, to find our way with the truth instead of reacting. I recognize that this is always within us. And recently, I went through a ministerial review, and I had reactions to some parts of it. And I was surprised at my reactions, and yet they were there, and I would spill them out, and then I would go, well, what is this pointing me to? Everything that was in the review was all my self-talk. Oh my God, they're reflecting back to me my self-talk. How could that be? And then you realize Roy had shared, doesn't matter, it's all Seva. And I thought, that's irritating, Roy. That's irritating, that's so dang true, but it's so irritating because it's all Seva. All that we do is not for one another. If we can walk from here with that, our hearts are free. Whatever you do, do it for God. Do it for the divine. Do it for spirit. Do it for nature. Do it for yourself. Love yourself first. Do it for that. And the freedom is letting go of all the opinions, all the insinuations, all of the reactions of others Doesn't matter. We've been invested in a lifetime of going to therapy and reading magazine articles about it, how to get out of having a hurt feeling. And yet, we can only turn within to find a greater truth and to love the self no matter what, to love that divine self. It's always within us. Nothing outside is controlling us. Let this truth operate through us. So we need these spiritual experiences just as simple, and they're everywhere present. Adashante, just tossing your shoes, and then the clumsy moment of, no, don't toss your shoes. You can just feel yourself going, ooh, I'm not good enough, I'm not right, I didn't do something right. No, you just correct it. You correct it right away. If you find yourself, now here's where we start watching our self-deception happen. And I hear this all the time. And remember, you're so exposed. So don't exaggerate your stories, because usually there was somebody else there with you and they know the truth. And I've had ministers share with me, oh, my membership has grown by 3 times as much. And I'm thinking, really? 3 times as much? Are you counting the ones that have left? And it's just an interesting game that we just try to nudge the numbers of things up just a little bit more to feel a little bit more important. But if we could say, oh, maybe it was only by 10 people. Coming back to the truth and keep reminding yourself, how can I clear the way and absolutely tell the truth and not be exaggerating in order to get attention from the world? Ernest Holmes says, we will never know peace until we embody it. We shall never know truth until we become that truth. So in the most simplest ways, we become that truth. We cannot go know God unless we sense him within our own being. The Spirit is ever giving, but we must partake of that. What life does for us, it must do through us. So responding from your quiet inner core instead of your personal history or from a time where you were disgruntled about something. It's described oftentimes that there is this divine light, this glorious light, and if we settle enough into our own being, if we're quiet enough, long enough, deep enough, to allow our hearts to be held in that revelation of truth, these shadows that try to peek out through within us, we can turn to those shadows and bring them into the light and bring them into the truth and know that we're set free in that moment. So the invitation, watch your reactions to how you're dealing with what is happening around you. Look at your internal responses. You will often feel the reactiveness in a gut level, tense shoulders. Just watch what's going on inside of you. Look at those internal responses and what are we telling ourselves to soothe our emotions or deal with our fear, dealing with fear of failure in front of others, the disappointing ego. Watch for it. The invitation is the soul's calling you home. The sacred self is what we're looking at this year. We might not like what happened, but it is what it is. And now where do we put our heart? Where do we put our attention? Where do we allow this shift to happen from within? Ask yourself honestly, what behaviors you've been engaging in that keeps you from the capital T truths, this divine truths. Are you rationalizing? Are you allowing a posturing, a behavior? Are you allowing what could have started off so innocently and now it's cheating you and trapping you because now you've created such a construct around it, you don't know how to break through the walls. Now, we're human beings having this experience, And the ego has been constructed as part of our personality and part of who we are to engage in the world, so it's not an evil thing. But the spiritual path, the spiritual longing, the spiritual desire is to cultivate that, allowing the full being of who we are to go into the small moments of pain and discomfort and awkwardness and rise again and stand in our truth. We can do this right now today by making an agreement with truth today. Wayne Dyer invites us to abandon the reliance on the false self and make an agreement with truth, to include truth as your companion to all your thought chatter. Make truth your companion in every conversation. Slow down, back up a little bit. Let truth be your companion. You have here now fierce honesty. You're looking at the shadows of what untruths have eventually created you into a trap. And in being someone you know inside yourself is far from being the authentic self. But what a delight. What a delight to meet each other heart to heart, eye to eye, and not feel like, I don't know if they can look at me because I didn't meditate this morning, but just look and just say who you are. Not beating, not self-effacing, not deceiving anyone, but just being the authentic self. And what is that? A self of love. So watch also what you have been fussing over. What have you been fussing over and trying so hard to keep others from seeing? Fussing over states of being as we mature, as we evolve in our age. Sometimes we start fussing over the body, fussing over our level of strength, our level of intellect. We start fussing over these things instead of just being with what is and learning tools to lift ourselves up. We fuss, we hide, and yet right within us is an authentic you longing to be burst forth. So at the end of our life experience, we can lay ourselves down with a smile in our heart. I was my true self. I am who I am. And all people know that. And all people are now comfortable with each other because we walk and we speak in truth. We're not second guessing everything that's going on. So I wanted to invite you into the practice to just relax here right now and visualize your inner life. Kind of close your eyes and just notice, as I've been listening to words and internalizing a message that perhaps I resonate with, or perhaps I need to dig a little deeper. I'm just here right now to asking myself to just visualize, what is my inner life? What kind of persona have I been presenting outwardly, yet it's not the truth of who I am? Can I take the top 5 roles of who I am? Now, this is a profound practice that the youth group introduced me to many years ago. So you take your 5, think about it, and really invest yourself in 5 areas. The 5th being, maybe the furthest from your heart. But 5 important things that you found yourself being in this lifetime so far. For example, I would say for myself, nurse, minister, yoga teacher, wife, mother. And so the one, as I go down to the number 1 thing, would be for me, mother. But I want you to, that's just an example. Think of those 5 things for you. What you closely identified with. Embody that and breathe that and feel how it created who you are. Those 5 things. Now take the fifth one, the number 5, and completely obliterate it, as if it never was, as if it was never you at all. It's gone forever. Every imprint, every thought, every part of you that it created is gone. Free? Yes, free of that. Now go to the 4th. Feel it. Embody it. I was that. I am that. I'm proud of that. I accomplished this and that from being. And now take it away. It's gone. It's done. Never was. Stripped away. Number 3, you breathe deeper. You're looking at all that has constructed the you that you think you are. The you that you introduced to others. I am this. I am that. I'm so proud of this. Take it away. You're down to your 2. Down to 2. Your heart is so invested in these last 2. 2 is taken away. No more. No more. And you're down to the 1. The one that you most identify with, the one that most stirs your heart, the one role that identifies you. It's gone. Take it away. Take it away. Nothing's left. Nothing. You're born again, new, nothing. Nothing is defining you whatsoever. Now feel what you feel. Please feel what you feel. Within that experience, you might try to feel like, well, I miss my... You can't. It is no more. There's nothing to miss. But you can't. It's gone. What are you? Walk around in that. That is the presence. Walking, living, breathing in you. Whispering wisdom. Whispering and embracing you with love because it is all that is. There's nothing more. And you sit in that. You sit in that and you feel that. This is the experience of the divine, living, breathing me. I am that I am. I am. That I am. And I am free. And I allow truth, the greater truth, the universal truth, to guide me, to fill me, to inspire me, to lead me. And then the gift of the divine offers you back, if you so choose, to take back your first role. And watch yourself run towards it, embracing it with a full heart of gratitude now. It's more real. It's pure. It's filled with your love. It is the longing that you have spent a lifetime cultivating. You bring it back into your experience. Number 2, if you choose. Number 3. Number 4. Number 5. And you realize, I am embracing all these roles of all that I thought I ever was. But now, I do it by choice because I'm set free, because I've allowed myself to purge what has been, and I now live and dwell within this temple, this holy temple that I've called upon these experiences, and I am now in divine service to the One, gifting me with these roles. This loving presence dwells in you. You cannot lie anymore. You cannot excuse or manipulate anyone because there's a truth that prevails within you. You are the authentic self, and there is no one to deceive, no one to manipulate, no one needs to adore you, to make you feel worthy. You're free. The truth has set you free. So it's a big step, letting go of trying to strive for a good opinion of others, creating yourself as you think you want them to see you as. You get to let it all go. No more exaggerations. Stuart Wilde took 68 years working on himself to transcend living phony and to get real. 6 years. He started telling it like it was without protecting his ego, and it took great courage. His ego, he found, was getting all anxious in the experience, but he went right through and began speaking truth, speaking it, though, with kindness. If it's not worth saying, it didn't need to be said. Begin to think and feel and act in the willingness now to just stay aligned with this great truth. So, Thomas Merton says, we must be true inside ourselves before we know truth outside. So as we close with the treatment, these are a message for you to take with you, to distill in your own heart space, in your own soul space. And Rumi says, when you eventually see through the veils to how things really are, you will keep saying again and again, this is certainly not like we thought it was. The sacred self is leading you home to your true self. So let us close our eyes, close this moment of reverent listening, because you were listening to words, but to yourself. You were listening to what rang true for your heart, to what is going to bless your way. And Ernest Holmes says, I speak my word. He is in one mind, and who can turn him? Emerson tells us there is one mind common to all. It is the eternal mind of which we use, the mind of God. Know that the mind of God is always filled with peace and joy and perfection. We enter into this divine state of being in such a degree as our thoughts are peaceful, joyous, and perfect. Let your thoughts be joyous and perfect. Practice the presence of God. Think in terms of being perfect and whole. We live in this mind, and our thoughts go out into the mind to be fulfilled. This is the principle of the spiritual treatments and demonstrations. Each individual is using this universal mind. Everyone is using it in a unique and personal way. This is our divine inheritance, but what we are drawn to lightly upon, not fully realizing, as Jesus did, the significance of our relationship with the infinite, our relationship with the divine. So, knowing there's only one truth, that God is all there is. And we choose today to allow truth to be our companion, truth to reside in our heart, in our mind, in our spoken word, in our words of thought, in our feelings. We keep using truth as our touchstone of the divine, and we recognize we are one with that truth. And in that knowing, we get this sense, this revelation of rising into a new self, a powerful self that operates on love and love alone. Today, I learn to enter more fully into my divine companionship. I speak my word of good, knowing that it will not return unto me void, because it hears the peace and the joy and the perfection that is of God. I rightly accomplish and I prosper as I persistently keep my desires in accord with God's nature. Ernest Holmes imprints upon our hearts a truth and a way, an invitation. And we are so grateful for the wisdom of the great philosophers, of the mystics, of the poets, of the spiritual teachers, of the community as we find ourselves immersed in a community of like-minded, open hearts, and we heal, and we find our way, and we forgive those unskillful moments as we turn to truth, and we allow the truth to be our empowerment. So I release this word, knowing that we leave here today guided and inspired and no longer deceiving truth in any way or fashion. But the power of our word is always truth based on love. Thank you, God. Just knowing that, all is well. And together we say, and so it is. Thank you.